Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to what has been our Thursday night series on Dick Gregory and the history of black comedy. We're so honored tonight to welcome Miss Kim Coles. Most of you should know her as Synclaire James, as among her many different roles. And we're going to spend some time this evening talking to her about her career, about where she grew up, about the high school that we went to. And of course, she also has a new book, so we will talk a little bit about her new book. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. No music. Listen, I come from an era in comedy when there was no music. There was no hype. There was no... It was just, ladies and gentlemen, a hopefully funny lady, welcome to the stage.
And then Def Comedy Jam
And
happened.
then Def Comedy Jam, yes. So we could talk about all of it. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
So thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And we were talking before you came on stage, and you mentioned, and let's just start with that you had a Dick Gregory story.
I have a Dick Gregory story. I saw him a couple of years ago in Chicago. There's a big women's empowerment event that they do there. I think it's called Women's Empowerment. And I saw it, and there's a hotel attached to the venue, to the convention center. And there's Mr. Gregory, in the lobby of the hotel, no fanfare, no entourage, just walking by himself. And I'm like, do you understand that a legend is amongst us? And he just said, and I don't know if he remembered, because we had met him before. I don't know if he knew I was Kim Coles, but he was saying hello to everyone, and hello, how you doing? How's the family? And I was like, he doesn't even know my family. How's the family? How's the family? But it felt to me as if it was a bigger question about family. And how's the family? Family all right?
Now,
said,
was
yes,
he
sir.
doing an event there, or
I don't
was
even
he
know.
just?
I don't know. I don't know if he was speaking at because it was such a big conference that they had lots of pockets of things.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was speaking at a separate event, but there he was, and it was like, hello, Mr. Gregory. How's the family? Everybody all right?
I asked that, because his son Christian will be here next week.
Oh, yes.
And Christian talks that, towards the end of his life, he would get bored at home, and he was like, Christian, take me to Whole Foods.
Wow.
And he would just hang out at Whole Foods and argue with people, have discussions with people.
Just be amongst the people. He may have just been there among all these folks and just, how's the family? I was like, he doesn't even know my family. But I felt that he cared.
Yeah.
And we know that he cared because of his legacy and because of what he left and what he did and the things he talked about. So, yeah.
But I imagine that you can't walk through airports or department stores or Starbucks.
I have my
days.
moments. You know what's funny is that Los Angeles, I live in LA. LA is sort of an unwritten rule. They're so jaded. It's like, I just saw Halle Berry yesterday. You ain't no big deal, Kim Coles. There's very little of it. Like if you hang out in LA, you can be anonymous, but it's other places you go. So I was telling you this as I was getting on the plane here. There was a brother who was checking the people in, and I gave my thing and said, thank you. He saw it was me. He says, I'm sorry, I gotta do this. And he grabbed me by the shoulders and kissed me on the cheek and sort of held, said, I'm sorry. And he sort of held the line up. Now people behind him are like, well, why is he kissing? Is he gonna kiss all the passengers? And so it so happened that the gentleman coming behind me who had no clue, he said, I bet you made his day, didn't you? I said, yes, sir, I did. And then that man happened to sit next to me, and he was like, what was that all? Because then the flight attendant was like, hi. And I was like, hey, woo, woo, woo. And so I had to explain myself to him, but here's the cool thing about it. This man had no idea, had never seen the show, but once we had a little bit of Wi-Fi up in the air, he Googled me, and then I got a chance to share the whole living single experience with him. And he said he was going to watch the reruns.
Does it surprise you all these years later? I mean, even when y'all were doing the series, did you think it would resonate with folks the way that it has?
I'll give it to you in this order. I knew that Living Single was going to be a hit because the six of us immediately got on, it felt like family and it felt right away. So number one, I knew it was going to be a hit. I knew it would last. I don't think I had presence of mind to think it would last this long, but it does. It has never left the air, even after it got canceled. It's airing someplace right now. I get those residual checks. Thank you. And I always like to say that you could tell the quality of the residual checks based on the quality of hair that I have. So if I'm wearing synthetic hair, then you know the checks have slowed down. Sometimes the checks are big enough to buy a nice human hair wig. So it lasts, and we're meeting. We're starting right away. Listen, you have people who come up and say, I named my daughter Synclaire, or I went to law school because of Max, or the love affair between you and Overton was so sweet and so innocent, and we were so glad to see Black love like that on a show. And also, here was Khadijah owning her own business, and so it was a positive experience all around, and I love that it's lasting.
Did you come across any dudes, and I might have been one of those dudes,
Oh,
that was like a little jealous of
Yes.
Overton, because all of y'all were fine, but Synclaire was fine.
Synclaire was goofy and fine. So if you like that type, then that's good. There's nothing smooth about me. Yeah, so I've heard that. I would he'd be kissing on you, and I'd be thinking it was me. I'd be wishing it was me. Happens all the time. By the way, those men still hit me up in my Facebook inbox all the time. There's a man named Leonard from Cleveland who lets me know when you come to Cleveland. When I'm coming to Cleveland, I'm not going to let you know I'm there. Man, your pretty brown skin. Ooh, Kim. I don't know that's how he sounds. I'm making him sound like an old man. Kim Coles, I could sop you up with a biscuit. Leonard, yeah. You can call me Lenny if you want to. I'm not giving you any nicknames. Get away. But it's sweet. I think what he and wonderful statements like that means that it resonated with you in some way. And that I remember reading an article that said that if, and this is not to toot our horn in any way, but they said that if Living Single would have been nominated for an Emmy, they would have loved to have seen, like the Synclaire and Overton was just two characters you hadn't seen before. Right. And their love was really so sweet and innocent until it wasn't, but it was never not innocent, but eventually we consummated. We got married. We got married on the show. That was important for brown people to see.
Yeah. You grew up in the BK?
I grew up in Brooklyn. What's up? Brooklyn's in the house. By the way, okay, this is an analogy. It's an analogy. Go with this. Durham is to Raleigh as Brooklyn is to Manhattan.
Yeah.
Right? Like Durham is all like hot now and cool, and hot and cool at the same time.
And Brooklyn's like that.
And
now.
Brooklyn is, and well, don't get me started. How I'm sure their rents have changed, have they not? I did a little time in Durham. We'll talk about that. I did a little time in the early 80s. I did one semester at NCCU. They call me an eagle, and I'm really just a pigeon that never could get up off the ground. So they come up and do the little eagle thing. I go, I don't feel qualified to lift my hands in eagledom because I dropped out. Like I'm a pigeon that just like a turkey that can't even get off the. But I love that they claim me. I did one semester at NCCU, and Durham was very different. I'm in the car. This is so fancy. It's fabulous here. It was not this fancy.
Yeah.
Not this fancy, but it was real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up.
Yes, so yes, I'm from Brooklyn. Yes.
You grew up in Brooklyn. Your parents were educators. Your father, in a very early historical period of time, was a dean at Pratt Institute.
Right. Well, let me give you even more context, if I may, because I actually have connection to North Carolina that's very strong. So my mother is from Raleigh. My father is from Brooklyn. They met in line at registration, first day of school at Shaw University.
Wow.
In line the first day, and my father being all Brooklyn, like, what's up with your accent? Why you talk all funny? And my mother was like, you probably gonna marry somebody like me one day. And then they did. So I love telling people that I'm a product of Shaw University, although I never attended there. I'm a product.
Right.
So they got married, they moved to New York. He moved her to New York. They were married for 17 years, got divorced. He moved back here, married wife number 2, who we don't talk about, and then wife number 3, who he was married to for 37 years, who's from Tarboro. She's from North Carolina. And my mother retired and moved back to Raleigh. So I've been coming to this area all my life. That takes us way off the topic of me growing up in Brooklyn. But I come from educators. My mother taught for 40 years. My aunties were in education. My dad was the first black dean. Some people say it's the first black dean at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. He always said he was the first black dean of the School of Professional Studies, so architecture, right. all that. So, and a man who, and I just lost him this year in May, late May. A man who loved North Carolina, came here, and he was the chaplain at St. Augustine's. So I'm missing a piece. social worker, got his doctorate at UNC, and then went into the clergy as an Episcopal priest, which was hysterical because we were never Episcopalians. But he said he'd always had this calling, and so he became an Episcopal priest, and so he was a chaplain at several churches here, and I should say the chaplain at St. Augustine. So, yeah.
So I imagine they had you on kind of a straight and narrow.
Yes. Well, they were educated. Also, they were. My parents were older. When I was born, my parents were in their 30s already. Now, we do that now all the time, but back then, none of my friends' parents were in their 30s. My parents were all the way grown. Right. They were like, 34, 36 back then. And so they did have me on the straight and narrows, but you're leading to something, and I'm waiting to hear what this is.
Yeah, because when did you know that you were going to be funny?
It's interesting. There are no pictures of me smiling with my full face until I'm a teenager. I was a very serious little girl. Not because I had old parents, because I was just a very serious little old Capricorn girl, a little old Capricorn. If you have any Capricorns here? So, yeah, here, woo. Woo, hello. Weren't you like a little old lady? Yes, and like now you're like, woo! But then I was an old lady. I was serious, and I asked lots of questions. I wanted to talk about science and space, and dolls were boring. They don't do anything. Give me a book. I want to read. It was who? So yes. So what's interesting is the high school that we went to, Brooklyn Technical High School. You just let me know what year. So I'm a little older.
I was there 79 to 83.
I was there 76 to 80. So I remember looking at the landscape of the school, looking at the landscape and being very clear that this is when you get defined. High school is when you start coming into your own, and when also kids tease you for being different. And because I was chubby, I was so concerned that I was going to be teased for being the fat girl. And I was like, we're all getting labels here. That's the pretty girl. That's the jock. That's the pee-pee boy. There's always a pee-pee boy. I always say the pee-pee boy grows up to overcompensate. Donald Trump was a pee-pee boy. That's all. That's the only political thing I'm going to say tonight. And I would try to spray my Jean Naté on him, like, and then Jean Naté and pee-pee doesn't work. So, but I knew I was going to be the fat girl, and I was like, I don't want to be the fat girl. Oh, I know. I'm going to wear a lot of makeup. Maybe I'll be the pretty girl. And the pretty girl it's not about makeup. It's about she was pretty and usually good hair, which I had neither. So I thought if I make them laugh, if I make people laugh with me, they won't laugh at me. And given that I had grown up watching all the great comedians on television, so I grew up watching Flip Wilson, Mr. Cosby, before we knew what we know, the Dick Gregorys of the world, even Carol Burnett, Lucille Ball, who's not a stand-up comedian, but comedy. Bugs Bunny was my best friend. And so I thought if I just make them laugh with me instead of at me, I will survive. And it was that discovery that I had this innate, just by watching the great comedians, and I had a way with words and a way of imitating. Also, we grew up in New York. There are so many amazing characters just walking down the street, right? You have, people from different cultures, different food, different accents. I grew up in Brooklyn where everybody there is from the Caribbean. So all you have to do is talk. That's Jamaicans, they put a H where the H don't belong. And you go and you talk this way. So I would go to school and say, teacher, I don't feel like doing my homework today. And so I would make, and so that's how I got in. That's how I got seen and noticed and attention. And I love to tell that I ended up becoming class president all 4 years. Wow. But not because I had policies and programs. I was like, vote for me or I'll throw an M&M at you, whatever. And because the school that we went to was a school you had to take a test to get in. How they let me in, I'll never know. It was really smart, like pocket protecting kind of kids.
And big. I mean, it was like 6,000 students.
Yes, huge. My graduating class was over 1,000 people. Yeah, huge. But you had to have some kind of brain to get in, to get out.
What did you major in?
I took the course that was the one they called college prep, which used to get teased for because it was like, well, I'm going to be an architect. Well, I'm going to be an engineer. You're just taking college prep. But what they never, which one did you take? So I'm going to take.
I was a mechanical engineer.
See, smart, whatever. But here's the cool thing about that is that I had to take calculus, 4 years of, you didn't have to take calculus. I had to take calculus. It was way harder than mechanical engineering. I almost didn't get out because of calculus. I was like, why? I will never use this. I don't need this, but I'm glad I have it. I know how to work an engine lathe, and I know how to work a micrometer. Do we even use those anymore? Who knows? But it was where I formed myself. I was on the cheering squad. I had this beautiful balance. And what I want to say is that I really wanted to go to the high school for the performing arts, which you will know is the Fame High School, Fame School. And I went down there to take the audition. You had to audition to get in. And I chickened out because I didn't feel like I belonged. And so because my zoned school was a school at the time where they were handing out switchblades the first day of school.
What was your zone school?
It was Erasmus Hall High School. It has now changed, but Erasmus Hall was like, you better get your books, get your switchblade. You're not gonna last. And corny girls like me, I would have been dead.
You were gonna get your bus pass stolen
every time. And so that's why Brooklyn Tech is so important to me, because I got a chance to be weird and goofy and smart, a smart girl, and not be teased for it. It was the environment where I could flourish, and then I was goofy and funny. And my first routine was Roots was on at the same time that we were in school. the original Roots, like LeVar Burton. And every day I would go to school and do a medley of what had happened the night before. Oh, wow. So by the end of the week, I had a whole routine, which if I remembered, I would do for you now. You want me to, let me put...
Do Kizzy for us.
I'll do okay, so I'm gonna do the whole thing. Down to the music. I hope I remember. I'm gonna mess up because I haven't done it in years. But I have to stand. Ladies and gentlemen, Roots in 30 seconds. This is going on film. I don't. Africa. And they grabbed Kunta. I don't remember how I depicted how they grabbed him. Your name is Kunta Kinte. No, wait. Okay, no, wait, forget it. No, I'm not doing it. Because I forgot how it started. Okay, so he's in Africa, they grab him.
Right.
Okay, so here we go. Good. Africa. And then they capture him, and they take him on the ship, and they go, your name is Toby. My name is Kunta Kinte. Your name is Toby. My name is Kunta Kinte. Your name is Toby. My name is Toby. I gonna name her Kizzy. Kizzy means stay put. My daddy always taught me how Canby, Belongo mean river, and how coat is a fiddle. Master, I beg you, please don't take my baby away. And I always stop here because Madge Synclaire, who played the wife of Kunta Kinte, is really from Jamaica. So if you listen to the lines, you actually will hear her accent come out. Master, please, I beg you, don't take my baby away. And then it ends with the, hold on, I gotta sit down, hold on. No, I'm not done. Wait, I'm not done. My name is Chicken George. So remember when they get free and they're leaving. Right. And it's him and Olivia Cole, and they're leaving. So, old woman, are you sad to be leaving your home? Olivia Cole, home? This won't never my home. No way, no how. This here's Master Harvey's slave quarters. And when we drives out of here, we ain't gonna think on it again. Well, yeah, get a mule. And that's the mule taking them. It's terrible. Please strike this from the film. I was 17 years old, but there was a whole, there's things I forgot. I should have practiced that before. I didn't know.
Well, you didn't know I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, you didn't know, but I have Chicken George, I have Olivia Cole, and I have Master. My daddy always taught me how Canby, Belongo mean river, and how Co is a fiddle. You remember Kizzy? Yeah, so I'm going to name her Kizzy. Kizzy means stay put. So this is what I did. This is how I got through not being laughed at. And what happened was I left high school, I left Brooklyn Tech. I worked for a year, came down to Central for 1 year, thinking I was grown, because I'm 19 now, and I've worked in Manhattan. I think I'm grown. and Central whipped my behind. Because it was my first time being away from home, and I wasn't ready to be away from home, and Brooklyn was something I knew, but North Carolina was...
Why'd you come to Central?
Because at the time that my parents, because they wanted me to get an education, I dropped into college at Brooklyn College and then right back out again because I just was not ready I was not ready to be an adult yet. Right. And because I owned my high school, but I couldn't own my college experience because there was a whole lot of other people who were smart and funny and whatever. I was like, oh, I fit in with everybody here. I'm nothing special, I guess. So it was chosen Central because at the time, just before I came, my uncle had been the dean of men at Central. His name was John Nnenna, a great man, and he passed away before I came. Like my mother's whole thing is, I'm sending you down. Your Uncle John and your Aunt Thelma are going to take care of you. And then he got brain cancer and passed away. That was my reason for wilding out and going, I don't know if yeah. But what was interesting was people always say that New Yorkers move fast, walk fast, talk fast. These little Southern boys were running rings around me. I was like, no, sir, I'm not ready to do those things. I'm still... Y'all are fast down here. Or they were moving fast because they were in college and there was, the frat life. I remember guys saying, you want to come over to the frat house? I was like, excuse me, I'm 19. I'm from New York. And that whole going over to the frat house thing is not going to work with me. Thank you. And it later worked. But I just wasn't ready. And so it was too much of a culture shock. So I'd been coming here all my life to visit family, but had not lived here. So it was, so I ran away. But I also wasn't sure what I wanted to study and do. I moved back to New York, and here's what you're going to get to. The moment I discovered that comedy is what I wanted to do was I went back to New York, and I entered into a beauty pageant for plus-size women, because now being plus-size was a good thing. Now we began to call it fluffy. It was no longer fat, it was fluffy. You could have your cake and be photographed with it.
Or just thick.
Or just thick. Like, thick was a thing now, And they called me just before the pageant and said, this is a real pageant. We're gonna have a talent competition and all the things. I was like, I don't have any talent. I done dropped out of college 15 times. And so I made up a comedy routine about beauty pageants. And it was a risk. Yeah, you said, wow, you worried for me, right? No, I thought, well, it's going to be an audience full of fluffy girls. So if I make fun of them little skinny girls and little skinny girl pageants. Right. Like, how do you twirl a baton and say you want to be Miss America? Twirling a baton is not a talent, it's a skill. Right. What the audience didn't know is I really do know how to twirl a baton because I had been a baton twirler in high school. So I ripped off my dress and I had a little silly sequin outfit, but in my size, like size 16. And I twirled my baton to the tune of Thriller, like Thriller. And I won first runner-up. And that was the night that I realized, oh, this is what I should be doing, because when you all laugh and clap, it feels like love to me. It's like waves of love coming through the audience, and that was the night that I discovered what I should be doing. You didn't ask that, but we knew we'd get there. So the bottom line is I wasn't funny as a little girl, but here I discovered this skill, and it was really to win friends and influence people. I didn't know I was gonna use it, and then that night I used it, I was like, I need to be using this for the rest of my life. I found my calling.
So you went on circuit?
I went on the circuit. I started going to the Apollo Theater, and this is when the Apollo started that show. It's Showtime at the Apollo. Right. So I was never eligible to be pulled off by the Sandman. I was put on as a professional, still green, still new. Got called to go and do warm up at the Cosby Show. Went and did that. Like, a lot of really major things happened really quickly for me. So I would say I started doing comedy in '85. By '88, I was on national TV. By '89, I got seen I was at an event, a party, and Keenan Ivory Wayans saw me and said, you that girl from the Apollo? And I was like, yes, I am. Do I owe you money, sir? You that girl from the Apollo? And he says, I'm doing a show. It's going to be a variety show. I want you to audition for it. I was like, oh, okay. And that show became In Living Color. So
you were on for the first season. And, a lot of folks will say that it was most exciting and risk-taking that first season. You're on this new channel, this new network, Fox, that don't nobody know what the hell this is. What was it like to be part of this kind of crew of people? And so many folks have become iconic, who went through that show.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a hot flash or you understand? She came and said, I understand. Or I'm just excited talking about this. So first of all, complex place to be because sketch comedy is well known to be very competitive. Right. It's a highly competitive environment, and you talk to anybody who's ever been on Saturday Night Live or any of those shows. So let me just say for the record, it was highly competitive. It was a family-run experience, so there was a competition involved in that. However, it was also, the air was electric we were hungry. We were saying things and doing things that had not ever been done before. This idea to do a variety show with brown people and Jim Carrey and Kelly Caulfield thrown in, like we've tipped the balance of, of casting, and it was really, it was edgy. There were people who were mad at us. Yeah. There were people who liked it. There were some people who didn't. And it felt like we were right on the edge, and that we were very much a centerpiece of this new network and this new conversation that was going to be had, that we're here to stay, we're funny, we're edgy, like it or not like it. They pushed some boundaries for sure.
You can talk about this whether or not you want to or not, okay. but you were only on for 1 year.
I was only on for 1 year.
Yeah.
So hearkening back to my conversation about competition, it's really hard to work in a place where everybody has the same last name. And it's really hard I'm just going to be honest, it's hard to work in a place where the boss's sister is there. She has since, because I don't want to sound like because being on that show led me to be on Living Single.
Right. And so you don't want to sound like the first Aunt Viv.
Sound like what now?
The first Aunt Viv.
Right, I don't want to sound like the first Aunt Viv. Right, yes, she has definitely, she's made some I don't know, I don't want to sound like the first Aunt Viv. Right. You can make different choices. Yeah. And the truth is, releasing me from that show sent me to a place where I could be, when I tell you, 100% more comfortable, 100%, my check was better, my friendships were better. It was a highly competitive environment. And you were expected to sort of create, even if you had nothing to create. It's like, I've given you my best stuff. What else do you want? And like I said, it was tough to work in a place where the boss's sister works. And there were some times that were really uncomfortable. I'll just be honest, I spent a lot of time crying in my dressing room there. I would come to work and my name would be off a sketch and somebody else's name would be on. Years later, she apologized to me. So that's why I'm trying to be careful about it, because she apologized with her whole heart and just, she was swept up in all of it. He was swept up in all of it.
Because it was funny. I did some research, because that's what I do. and there was a quote about, that they didn't find you to be versatile enough. And the first thing that went to my head is like, and his sister was?
No comment. Well, what's interesting, I wasn't found to be versatile, but there's a way that you can foster that. There's a way that you can open. So if I show you something and you go, whatever, and you move on to, eventually your spirit gets broken. Right. So I would love to see this article. What did they say? What else they say? I think that I think talent, creatives need to be fostered and encouraged and loved on. And if you try something and they go, nah, and you try something else, they go, nah, at some point you shrink. Right. So maybe I was fired because I began to shrink, but anyone would shrink in an environment where there's nothing you can do that's right. And I understand that my audition for the show required that I bring characters. I used to do a routine, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to mess up like I messed up the other one. I used to do the Miss America pageant, and I would do I have characters galore, but if you're not encouraged, if it's not an encouraging environment. He let me go and later apologized as well and said, I needed to let you go, and I knew you were going to be okay. And I don't know if that's really, really true, just like whatever, oh, you turned out all right, because within 2 years I was on, listen, I didn't audition for Living Single. Living Single was given to me. A lot of people don't know that Living Single was created around Queen Latifah and Kim Coles. So I went from a show where I had to struggle and to be seen and like, da-da-da-da-da-da, no, da-da-da-da-da-da, no, da-da-da-da-da-da, to a place it was like, oh, just walk in the door. Come on in, we want you. It was incredible, and a place where there was community and collaboration and no competition. So when you see Erica Alexander, Crazy Max, and she's doing her thing, we're all standing back, get out the way, let her do a thing. Or John Hinton would throw something at me that was not even on the page, and I catch it and throw it back at him. back to him, I should say, there was nothing but a flow of energy. So it was the best thing that could have
spirit
ever
of
happened.
collaboration.
Yeah. So I try not to sound too negative when talking about it because it was the best thing that could have ever happened. And like I said, my checking, and it's not about the money, but sometimes it's about the money.
But tell me what it was like, or tell the audience what it was like in those early 1990s, because I'm sure there are actresses and actors, black actresses and actors, that in 1970s, if they got fired from a show, there was no guarantee that they would get to do anything else after that.
True.
What did it feel like? Was it an environment where you felt as though stuff was popping around black culture in a way that there had to be other opportunities for you?
It's that and this was the job that brought me I would never have even moved to LA if I had Living Color in my back pocket, and that's back pocket, which is what brought me out. So I had no choice but to figure something out. The good news is back in the day, they gave these wonderful holding deals. So the good news about a holding deal is they would give you money to not do anything while they maybe develop something for you, which sounds amazing until you spend a whole year doing nothing. So I would go on the road and do stand-up again. So I started out as a stand-up, as you know. I would just go back to my roots and keep doing my thing. I had made enough of a buzz on Living Color. I didn't think I had, but I guess I had, where I got a couple of holding deals to hold me off while they created things that never happened. But I just started doing stand-up. I just went back to my roots. And I think that this has served me to this day, that even while I was on Living Single, I knew it wouldn't last forever. I mean, we lasted 5 seasons, but I knew it wouldn't last forever. I constantly kept other things going. Yeah. I looked at the landscape, again, just like I did in high school, and I was like, I'm gonna be funny. I looked at this landscape and said, well, I'm gonna be busy, because you would see folks that you knew, names that you knew from, maybe some of the blaxploitation films, or, people who were, iconic in this industry, not working at all because they hadn't figured out what else they can do. And so I wrote a one-woman show and a book at the same time. I went on tour during my hiatus from the show, and I did my book tour and my one-woman show in New York at the same time, because I was like, this was going to end one day. What else can I create for myself? And that's what I would say to all artists, really, or everyone in general. If you've got a fire inside of you for something, do all of it, because it makes up the beautiful mosaic of who you are. So I don't know if I answered that, but there was a black, listen, black folks built Fox. Let's call it what it is. Absolutely. Thank you very much. That's the most political thing I'll say all night.
There's actually
we absolutely, and then they abandon us.
There's a book, Crystal Brent Zook, who teaches at Columbia. She has a book called Color by Fox.
It's
and
true.
She talks about the strategy that Fox did to build its station, basically on the backs of a black product.
And brown. Yep. Absolutely. And when they canceled us, they replaced us with a show that was not the demographic. Like, who did you think was going to watch this? It was a show about a man who dressed up in women's clothing, who was like an advice columnist. So I don't have a problem with, you could be a cross-dresser, you could be trans, you could be any, but it was just, it didn't even make sense.
It makes sense for the network, right?
It was not for that network at that time. It would probably work now, because we're having more of those conversations now, but it was whatever. But very much so. But it felt hot. It felt hot. I felt hot. We felt, here's the other thing too. Living Single was said to be the #1 show in African-American households, but I was meeting people who didn't look like me, who had seen the show, who loved the show. There was a little old Jewish man in a bank who couldn't stop squeezing my arm. Hello, how are you? I want to tell you, I love watching that show with all of you girls. You remind me of all of my friends. And I said, stop squeezing my arm, little man. But I reminded him of the women he grew up with in his neighborhood. Right. Yeah. So.
There was an interview that Tracy Ellis Ross did a couple of weeks ago, and Girlfriends is unimaginable without Living Single.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
That's just the reality of it. But she talked about, as the star of the show, if she had ever got invited on one of the late night shows on a regular basis, right, as the star of a show, it would have brought a whole different audience to the show. And I reference that in the context, folks have been having these conversations the last year, right, where, Friends was the first show that did this, and that, and folks like, In Living Single came on the year before.
In fact, a lot of people don't know this. The person who was the president of, I want to say Warner Brothers, NBC. Or Warner Brothers, I don't remember which, because we were a Warner Brothers show, and I believe so was Friends. Maybe I'm getting the facts wrong. Here's all you need to know. There was a man named Warren Littlefield who said, if there's any show that I wish that I had bought for this season, I wish I had bought Living Single, and the next year Friends came out. So whether he was, I think he was the president of NBC at the time.
Right, because he did Friends.
Right, he sure did.
Right. Seinfeld.
And so we were on
Seinfeld,
simultaneously. And here's what's interesting. I remember doing an article in Entertainment Weekly. And they came out and took pictures of us, and it was like the us versus them, and like, wow, the shows are awfully similar. And I never forget, and I don't talk about this often, that Sunday, we'd all gone out to brunch, and the friends were all going out to brunch too. And I was like, oh, there's our nemesises, or nemesi. And I was like, oh, it's gonna be like like the Sharks and the Jets, from West Side Story, like, whatever. And they were oblivious to us. And I was like, ooh, don't look at them. Go ahead, Erica, don't look. And they were like, we were like not even a blip to them. The actors anyway.
Right.
And I thought they have no idea that there's this cultural divide that has happened.
It's kind of what white privilege looks like.
Enough said. Just saying, I'm not political. Well, it's funny, when you all called me and asked me to come and do this, I thought, oh, I am not like Mr. Gregory. I don't have the bravery that he had to tackle the topics that he did, and with such courage. Right. Not only tackling the topics, but like full-bodied, being arrested and standing for things, and then creating all kinds of movements, like, the whole health, like that Bahamian diet was delicious. Like really standing for something. And I'm like, I got more work to do to really stand for something with your full body. And so thank you for inviting me for this.
You did a couple of spots on Frasier. And I often wondered about that when because first of all, there weren't no black people on Frasier. So that's the first part, right? But you also kind of played this rival radio host. And I often wondered, particularly given the fact that Kelsey Grammer later becomes the executive producer of Girlfriends.
Yes.
Which, like, folks don't know.
Folks don't know that.
Were they thinking about creating an avenue for you, a vehicle for you?
Funny you should say that. So first, I love to tell people that Kelsey Grammer was so wonderful to me. He was wonderful and warm and welcoming. And it's important because I booked another show, and I don't want to mention names because it's going to sound like I'm dissing her. Like, it's really tough to work with a woman who's cold but a man who's warm. So they let me go. They were like, if you want to, it was like women are usually warm and fuzzy. This particular person she was kind, but she was cordial, but she wasn't like fuzzy. Living Single was a fuzzy experience. So to leave that and to go out in the world and people weren't fuzzy, and here was Kelsey Grammer. Kim, come on in. He would give me hugs and shared his lunch with me. I said, I am eating some of Kelsey Grammer's lunch. And he's a billionaire. And he talked to me about how important it was. I think he ended up achieving this. He was the longest running character on a series. Right. At the time, he was trying to beat Matt Dillon from Gunsmoke. I know I'm showing my age. I'm showing his age. He's I'm just trying to beat Matt Dillon. I'm like, okay. I think that was the character's name or his name. So he was so warm and wonderful. And I got a chance to do 2 episodes. My agents and I did go to them and say, this is a spin-off character.
Right, absolutely.
Dr. Mary would have been perfect. And I don't know what happened politically behind the scenes. I don't know if because the writer who wrote that episode ended up leaving, but I imagine that they owned the rights to it so they could create. Right. So I never did get an answer for why they wouldn't. And we really had several conversations. It just never went anywhere. And it would have been, because there could have been great cross-promotion. And he did produce Girlfriends. I remember him saying to me, Joan is me. I'm like, she is? Yeah, he said, well, she's the central character. She's flawed. She's powerful. She's smart. I was like, she's Kelsey. He thought that Frasier was the same as Joan in his mind. So anyway, that would have been so nice. And we tried. We sure did. And those episodes won awards for diversity. Right. And he let me teach him how to do this. Because he was like, I don't care. And I said, no, take it here. And it was a question about culture and is it all right? You could put kittens in the oven, but that don't make them biscuits. And he was concerned that he was going too far. And I said, no, we understand when y'all try to be like us and you fail. And so it was really, truly wonderful.
Right, as he's singing the introduction every week, sounding like an old blues man.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, he loves culture and he loves, he was wonderful. And they all were wonderful. That's another thing, too. Another story I don't tell. On Living Single, we fought for better dressing rooms. Like, we had trailers out in the middle of the parking lot, almost like the circle, like the OK Corral or something. And the first year, they gave us these old, raggedy trailers. And we had to fight by the second season to get something a little bit better. When I went to visit the set of Frasier, they were in old building on the Paramount lot. I think the paint was chipping. I think the rug had not been changed since 1943 in Clark Label. And they were fine with it because they went in, they did their work, they collected their check, and they left. And because they were being compensated properly in the places that mattered. And we were just like, can you give us some better snacks? And I was like, this is interesting what you get a chance to fight for. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. And I got to work with the great John Mahoney, who later passed away. Who, by the way, he had a real, so art imitates life. There was a chair in the little, like, holding area, like, little dressing room. And I went and sat in it one day and was watching TV, and I saw him come upstairs and said, hey, Kim, how you doing? We sat and talked. The next day, Perry Gilpin, the one who played Roz, she said, I don't want to, you can sit wherever you want to sit, Kim. John Mahoney will never tell you, but that's his chair. And I was like, I was sitting in the chair upstairs, and he's going to welcome you, and he's never going to say, don't sit in my chair because you're family to us this week, but that's his chair. So the next time I came upstairs, I was not sitting in his chair, and it was like sort of like a little knowing, like, I think someone told you not to sit in my chair. And it was so sweet because that was anyway. Yeah.
You mentioned a few minutes ago that you had to develop a long game. Right, you have to think about in living single, you have to think about sustainability. And so you've been writing books. And so you have a new book. Talk a little bit about your new book.
I do. I've actually written 4 by now. My first book was called I'm Free, But It'll Cost You. The Single Life According to Kim Coles that I did I would be in my trailer writing my book. This 4th one is called Open Your Gifts. So stand-up comedian, actress, supermodel. And now I teach the power of storytelling to entrepreneurs, business owners, teach you how to take your story, your powerful stories, and use them to inspire, captivate, compel others. So this book that you'll see, Open Your Gifts, is actually, it's not even about the entrepreneurial space necessarily. It's just, I love helping people tell their stories. So it's an anthology of mostly women, and there is one man in the book. I love when men tell their stories. We're so ready for men to start opening up and sharing their stuff. So please continue sharing. Sharing the stories about how they found the gifts in life. And because I think I'm clever, I came up with an acronym for GIFTS, which is gratitude, intention, forgiveness, triumphs, and self-love. So what if your gifts are found by being grateful for what you already have every day? As I should tell you that after Living Single ended, I went into a terrible depression. So things would pop up like Frasier, and then I would be depressed. And there's other little things would pop up because I kept waiting for the experience to be like it was on Living Single, and nothing will ever be like that again. Maybe even greater one day, but until then. And so I got depressed. I went, really into a dark place. And it was through a whole lot of therapy and a whole lot of prayer that I discovered that being grateful for what you have right now, even if you think you have nothing, you have so much. Being intentional in the way that you want to live your life and getting in inspired action, forgiving past things that don't matter. That's why I'm so careful when I talk about living color, because it's like it's all been forgiven. I moved on and did really well. The T is for triumphs, which is about standing in your power and in your truth and in your magnificence. No matter what you think is wrong with you, there are so many more things that are so right about you. And the S is all about self-love and about learning and growing. And so each of these authors took either one of the G, the I, the F, the T, or the S, and wrote a chapter about the lessons learned, the gifts that were opened and unfolded. And so that's what this book number 4, it's the second anthology, and the in this series.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I be doing things. I be tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. But I also have. I feel like I have control. I feel like I don't have to sit around waiting for auditions to come.
Okay.
That feels powerful to me. I still want to be on TV. I hope that happens again. I'm working towards that. But no matter what, I do the speaking circuit. I'm an ambassador for AARP. Mostly because I get that little 15% discount. And so I'm working all my magic all the time. I have programs where, like I said, I teach people. I have programs for women around the personal development space. And so it's almost like Hollywood now just becomes one of the plates that I'm spinning. You remember the old variety shows where they would try to spin all the plates?
So let me ask you about the AARP piece. We hear from women performers all the time about the ageism that's in the industry. What does that look like for black women in particular?
I may not be the right person to ask.
Because you look like you're still 35?
Well, because I'm 57 and 3/4. What?
Wow.
No, actually 57 and 7/8 or something. I don't know.
But black don't crack?
But black don't crack. But it does droop sometimes. Just letting you know. Black don't crack, but it does droop. I'll be trying to keep it together. You know, I guess I'm not the right because I'm not the right person to complain about ageism because I've created so many other things for myself. And maybe I'm just ignoring the fact that it exists, but I'm not going to let it stop me from being vital, frankly, from dating younger men. She said, all right. I'm going through a divorce right now. My husband was 46. I'm 57, and my mother was like, why don't you settle down with some nice man, Kim, some nice 75, 78-year-old. No! I still, not while I still got it. I don't want some 78-year-old. Well, unless I could, this is terrible. I was going to make jokes, though. No. So I don't pay attention to it. I do a motorcycle ride over those rules about ageism and things. I don't have time. I can't stop to think about it because I'm too busy creating other things for myself and other opportunities. Like I said, these books are so that women's voices can be heard. So yes, it exists. We do see pockets of change. We do see opportunities for people here and there. But I'm not busy banging on the door like, let me in. Like I'm still vital. I'm like, I don't want to break a nail banging down that door. I'm just going to go I'll break a nail building a door over here for myself and for others as well. And so I may not be the right girl to have that conversation. It does exist. Also, the other thing, too, for comedians, you know, Joan Rivers worked until she was 953 years old. She worked the night before she died. You understand that? She was on stage, and yes, I know she's pulled for the gods. But she worked, so I don't have to have the same body image, the same looks as the ingenue. I was never an ingenue. And although Synclaire was, young and, naive and all those things, I got into this business. I was never in the same game. I was never in the same beauty game as anyone else was, or even the rules about age. There's someone who, I will not mention her name, who played a major role on a major show that we love, who when she hit Hollywood, she put her age back 5 years. There are people who are like, I went to school with her, and she is not 38. It's because she knew she had to in order to continue being the ingenue as long as she could. The bad news about that is sometimes age catches up with you. And so if you see her now, you go like, she's not aging too well. No, she just looks like how she's supposed to look, except that she's done put her age back too far. And that's why listen, the minute I stop looking like my age is when I'll stop telling it. When I catch up, when I think I've caught up. So when you all meet me a little bit later, you look up close, you go, Kim Coles, you get into the age where you need to start lying. I just refuse to. There's so many other things I got to battle down. I'm not going to battle that one. I don't know if I answered the question properly.
I got one more question for you
Yes.
before we open it up to the audience. Who are some of the folks who were inspirations to you?
Yes. I'm going to mention a name, and I mentioned his name already, and it's really hard because we know what we know. I'm so mad at him. I'm so mad at Mr. Bill Cosby. But his storytelling, as a little girl, I was in love with his storytelling. I try very hard to separate the man from his heinous acts. And I'm so mad that he didn't get the help that he needed so that his iconic iconography has been ruined. Is that a word? You're a professor. That's not a word. His his iconology has been ruined by what he. Oh, I'm just so mad at him. So he was one of my favorites. Mr. Dick Gregory, because he could take these difficult topics and make. There were some things he would say, like, "Ooh, white people shouldn't hear that. Don't tell the white people that. Don't tell the white people about themselves. Like, Mr. Gregory, what are you doing?" But he could push those buttons, so I'll put him there. Of course, Mr. Richard Pryor, who was fearless. Of course, I remember the day I went to go see Whoopi Goldberg on Broadway, and whoever was sitting behind me must have been so mad. I sat like this the whole time, like home. I was in love with this brown-skinned woman who was doing these characters and telling these stories, and it was actually around that time that I was like, okay, now I've got to do this, because she is. And when I met her, I couldn't breathe. It's very nice to meet you, Miss Goldberg. Nice to meet you. And what's funny about her is she taught me how to be that way with someone who might be that way with me later on. She just disappeared. This is how Whoopi Goldberg did me. It was. I got to get it. I'm going to use the environment. We met not backstage, but in the back office of our orthodontist office. This is such an LA thing. You meet at your dentist's office. And he told me she came in on Tuesday, so when you come, she's going to be here. Hi, Miss Goldberg, so nice to meet you. Hi, and you weren't sure. I might have been an axe murderer or something, because it's so nice to meet you. And so what she did was she just excused herself, like, okay, nice to meet you, girl. All right. Okay. All right. You take it. Nice. All right. All right. Hey, all right. You doing the comedy thing? All right, girl. All right. All right. And she was gone. I said, but without I didn't feel dissed. I only felt love. It was like, and in my mind, she was saying, we're not having a real conversation right now. I'm happy to talk to you, mentor you, in my mind, mentor you, whatever you want to know, but and she was just like, just in case you're going to stab me at the dentist's office. I've never had a chance to tell her that story. I need to tell her. It was a gracious way to exclude herself from the experience. Also, Oprah. I have a great Oprah. I also did that to Oprah. There are people who take your breath away, and she's one of them. You feel her energy. Anybody here have ever been in the room with her? You literally can feel her energy, and so many more. I'm going to forget. And I also mentioned Carol Burnett and Lily Tomlin. A lot of those variety show people from the 70s, the Laugh-In. I saw Ruth Buzzy in a Staples once. I couldn't even approach her. I was like, there's a comedy goddess. So there's so many more. You mentioned more names. And then, listen, when we did Living Single, and Overton and I got married, my parents were Denise Nicholas and Ron O'Neill, Superfly. And John's parents were Huggy Bear and Gladys Knight. Antonio Vargas, and who was so cool. He was so cool. And, Cat Daddy. I was like, well, he could get it, even though he's kind of old. And Gladys Knight, all nothing but respect. So yes, did I answer the question?
Yes,
so many, all of them.
did.
I studied them all and did not take acting classes. Every time I dropped into acting class, it seemed so. I was like, stop telling me to do things I'm never going to get to do.
Which is so funny because Synclaire did all that acting.
She did. She
That's
became an
stuff.
actress on the show. Art did not imitate life. I've been making it up as I go along, all along, but getting the lessons I need from the masters by watching and studying them. And really, my favorite comedians today are the ones who I can tell have studied the masters.
And so who are those? Who are some of those?
Everyone. I really I'm in love right now with Trevor Noah. Have you ever seen his stand-up? He's an incredible writer. Also is able to push some political buttons. And about race. I mean, he's South African, so he's allowed to talk about all of it. Pushes some incredible buttons. And if you ever get a chance to watch any of his behind the show stuff, he answers very powerful questions in a loving and educational way. Like he shut people down without even them knowing. I've been shut down by Trevor Noah. That's all right. I love Kevin Hart. I'm loving Leslie from Saturday Night Live. There was a point where I think, oh God, she's so loud. But we need loud. We are loud people. And what I love about her is that she is fearless on stage. And so I love women who are fearless on stage because it requires a certain level of fearlessness, especially since you're you're going to be objectified anyway, so you might as well go for it. I think Tiffany Haddish is going to continue. I think she's smarter than people know that she is. I think so. She's this character now. But she's brilliant. She's brilliant. I'm not saying but. I mean, that's a character, but I think there's so much more there, and I can't wait to see what else happens for her. I worked with her on a web series and, got to be backstage doing makeup with her. She's brilliant, and can't wait to see what else she does. Who else? Some some other names. I'm going to leave people out. I don't want to leave people out, but I'm a student of all of it. I am going to sign copies of the book. Also, I want to let everyone know, I have something, I would love to invite you to my VIP list and give you something free. I have a little mini course that I call What's Your Story? I think that we do have rich, beautiful, wonderful stories that need to be told. And so if you go to storywithkim.com, you will get a free mini course from me, little videos and story prompts. So it's like I give you the prompts to get you thinking about things in your life that you haven't thought about in years. And this is what I mean by the whole legacy, that people need to know what you have been through. They need to know about your lessons that you have learned. They need to know what you have triumphed through. And whether you write it in a book or do a one-person show or share it with your nieces and nephews, your story needs to come forth. So if you go to storywithkim.com, everyone gets that freebie. I'm not the kind of person that will sit there and not hug you or whatever if you don't buy a book. I mean, please do come and buy a book because they're heavy. And the airline charged me extra for that fifth bag I had. But I wanted everyone to have that, storywithkim.com. And it puts you also, like I said, on my special list. Free gift with purchase.
Kim Coles.
Thank you. Kim Coles, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It feels like love to me. Thank you.